Hi, everybody, and welcome to another week of our pep chats, our live streams. Each week we have a kind of a remarkable guest on speaking about something really cool about their career and how it impacts on the business world. And one of the things we're very passionate about here at Pep Talk is the concept of what is the difference in making good teams great. And we're very fortunate today. As always, we're being joined by the Pep Talk CEO, James Brogan. James, you're welcome to the chat. You're on mute as we. How's everything going with you?
Good. Yeah. Thanks again. Delighted to be here and looking forward to the conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. Today's a great guest and a personal buzz for me because today we're joined by Craig Fulton, or Ned to his friends. Hey, Craig, how you doing, man?
Hello, guys. How's everyone?
Craig is not just one of the most decorated people in his sport, also a genuine good and a close personal friend. So it's good to see you again, man.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here, man. I'm looking forward to this. Thanks.
So just to kick it off and to give us kind of a concept of like one of the things I think is really important is to kind of understand the correlation between sport and business, and to explain, Craig, to explain your career. Craig is a two-time Olympian player with South Africa. He coached the Irish national hockey team to their first ever break into the top 10 countries in the world. They won a bronze medal at the European Championships, defeating a fully professional team when the Irish team was a mishmash of kind of professional, semi-professional, and amateur players. In 2018, I had the great pleasure of working with Craig with the Irish team, and it led to a move for Craig to the Belgian hockey system, which Belgium were coming off the back of two major final defeats, including the previous Olympic Games. And Craig moved to Belgium in time to prepare for the 2018 World Cup. And what's happened in the 4 years since then has been nothing short of remarkable, as Belgium have become the first team in history to win the World Cup, to then follow it up with the European Cup, and then finish off the trio with the Olympic title. So Craig, I think that more than anyone, you're in a great place to talk to us today about what it means to have a great team culture and how culture influences performance. So just to start with, there's a quote on the screen there about how companies are always striving to kind of put a definition on culture. But what is lovely there is that it's a quote from ourselves in Belgium, and it's how we do things around here. You know, that's our culture. And I think, if you don't mind, Craig, I think a lovely place to start is that 2018 World Cup. There's a beautiful story about Simon Gagnon and the really difficult personal experiences he had, which led to what you believed, and I know we've talked about this before, was a remarkable team performance in the semi-final against England, and on to the final. So maybe talk to me a little bit about that and what it was about the culture that the Simon Gagnon incident kind of brought out in the team.
Yeah, thanks for that intro, Niall. Takes me back a few years. Yeah, it's like a lifetime ago from the World Cup. But that World Cup was indeed special because I joined, I think, in July, August, coming from the Irish men's team, and really wide-eyed, bushy-tailed, really excited to be involved and try and understand what makes them tick. They had a few disappointments, which is fine, which is normal. You expect that at times, and the real goal was to try and get consistency into the tournament, to really play to the level that the guys know that they can play and had played. And it didn't start as well as we'd wanted to in the tournament per se. Drew against India in the first game, and it got to a point where it came to a quarterfinal against Pakistan, I think it was, and then we played Germany. But the bottom line was Simon Guignard is part of a team that's been together for probably, most of those players have played together for 10, 12 years. And the strength of the relationships is phenomenal. You know, when you've been in an environment where you know how people are going to react under pressure, or you've been through so much from the youth through the under 21 program into the professional and club and country, and now suddenly you're in a big moment, big situation. The challenge there was Simon's father was very ill, and it wasn't public knowledge to a lot of people, but it was kept underhand, obviously for protection for him. But the unbelievable thing was that his dad passed during the tournaments and the day before the semi-final. And as anyone knows, take sport out of it just in general, that's a traumatic thing to go through. But because of the culture and the connection and the trust levels and that, and man, it didn't matter who we were playing in that semi-final, they were going to get smashed. And it was just such a brilliant revelation of how strong the group was, because everyone was playing for Simon and for his family. And it was so much bigger than any one person in any one event at that tournament. And we beat England 6-0, and it could have been more. And it was just the catalyst of, I'd say, years and years of all parents getting together behind the team. They were all supporting each other. And then you look back over the years and, yeah, here's someone special in the group whose father has passed. And yeah, we only have one thing to do, and that's destroy the team in front of us and, you know, pay respect to that and carry that through. So that is a healthy, functioning culture in my book, you know, and it takes time. It really takes time, and the connection, because I like what that quote says there. It's the way we do things around here. But the way we do things around here is underpinned by a lot of trust, a lot of time, a lot of fault and correction, and then respect in terms of, okay, that's not acceptable. This is acceptable. When you're down, we'll support you. When you're up, we push as hard as we can. And I think that came out, all of that came out in that last quarterfinal, semi-final, and final of that tournament.
Yeah, and it's such a powerful story, and it's such a lovely, it's a very simple way to highlight the importance of trust and connection. And James, just bringing you in there, I mean, I know obviously this is part of your vision for Pep Talk and where this company has been built from, you know. And when yourself, Michelle, and Bernard got together to launch this thing, there was very much that kind of understanding that connection and trust and the team unit was so important in the overall delivery of a high performing environment in business. And it's probably a lot to do with your experience in sport, and just curious to kind of get your take on that and where you kind of see it.
I mean, it's funny even, and it is the interesting thing for me about that statement is it's actually, I think, the last word, which is the here, and how things are done around. I think it was here, like the big challenge for organizations right now is, where is here? What is it?
Yeah,
it's not the office anymore. Sort of, is it fully remote? And that's it's really interesting, and that's is a great statement to actually use as a catalyst for really good conversations in business. And you're right, Niall, ultimately that's what Pep Talk is trying to do now. If we acknowledge that the center of gravity of organizations is no longer the office, so whereby this is how things are done around here, it's quite easy to see that. So, you know, we walk in, certain people maybe carry the culture, certain other people maybe just kind of follow in, and you always probably have that dynamic, and obviously you see that in team sport as well. But I think the biggest challenge we see on the Pep Talk side with organizations is defining what here is, and that's where really the team piece, because you think of it, that's where work is now getting done. Maybe some people are in an office, some people are remote, maybe they're all in one day, they're all at home the next. So I think one of the kind of principles that we've sort of established in more recent times in Pep Talk, and we've evolved, is that teams are now the center of gravity. And when you think about that, to your point and Craig's point, how do we build trust when we're not all going to be in the same place? And I think that's ultimately what Pep Talk are trying to do, is create the environment where trust can be built. And that's a challenging thing, to Craig's point, and I think it doesn't necessarily happen overnight. But I think organizations need to probably acknowledge that this is where we're at now, and probably the best unit to focus on is the team. And probably the last point is, they don't happen by accident. I think great teams, they need to be fostered and built and cajoled along and build those habits and behaviors. And I think that's kind of why we're here, to help organizations with those habits, to make it easy for managers, leaders, and teams to take a step. And I think by that we can start kind of looking at creating the type of culture that clearly, Craig and I know yourself have been part of in your own careers. And when you're part of it, and it's a feeling then, as opposed to the habit. And I think that's really interesting. So yeah, it's a very interesting time to be in the world of work. And I think that the statement is just interesting in that context of where teams really are now,
Yeah, I agree with you. And it's funny, because the thing that underpins culture and trust and all these things are really kind of, and it's a word, I've always struggled with the word values, because it automatically becomes a very kind of feely American word. But really the thing that underpins any culture are how we live, the values we set ourselves. And, it's really interesting that there is some research there from Gallup in the States, where 23% of US employees strongly agree that they can apply their organization's values to their work every day. But really, the thing I found kind of interesting was only 27% actually believe in their organization's values. And Craig, from your perspective, with the, you talk about the team connection built over years, but, from the World Cup to the Olympics, in those couple of years, and particularly there was an extra year at it when you guys were going into 2021 as favorites for the Olympic title, and then the Olympics gets pushed back a year. Now all of a sudden your senior players are a year older. You've got younger guys coming through, but when you're bringing young kids into that environment, in order for them to buy into that culture, and they don't have the time and the relationships, how do you set, what were the values you guys set that kind of got them to understand very quickly, this is what we're about, this is who we are, and this is how we carry ourselves?
I think the underlying thing was from the current head coach at the time was Shane, and he basically said when he came in, his number one priority is to make this team of stars, because individually they have a lot of experience internationally, club-wise, but you're talking some of the guys have way over 300 caps, and most of them do, and some have 400. That's exceptional. So in terms of taking a team of stars and turning them into a star team was the number one priority. So it was obviously to try and get everyone to play to their level, but do it collectively, so that on any given day, if we were playing a 7 out of 10 and someone else was playing an 8, find a way to win. But if we were playing a 9 out of 10, no one would get close to us. So it was it was really important to try and, there wasn't like 3 values as per se written down. There was a lot of collective. It was built behind a vision of what we were trying to do, and that was to be as consistent as possible to try and win the major be competitive in the major competitions. But it's obviously underpinned by values and behaviors, because your value can be written on a wall, but how do you behave towards that value? Although if there's no connection between, all right, we're doing fitness, but half the group's only doing cutting the corner by 1 meter, and the other group's doing exactly what's expected, how are you ever going to collectively under pressure get there at the end when half the group's only done 900 meters of the sprint session versus the rest have done 950? It's just a small, stupid example, but
it's a very relevant one, because I remember talking to you when lockdown happened, and looking at kind of I remember doing an interview with the head of infrastructure with McLaren Formula One, and he was talking about how they got through the lockdown much better than a lot of their competitors.
Yeah.
They've been struggling with office space and remote working for a couple of months before the pandemic hit. So they had started to invest in laptops and putting people externally. But what was really interesting in the chat with you was the first thing you guys did when lockdown happened was you went and you bought gym equipment for every player and basically set up their own little training routines at home.
Yeah.
But then there's the trust that they're doing the work and the understanding that if you don't do the work, we're not going to win. So it's kind of like, do you have a squad of guys who are ready to win, or do you have a squad of guys who just want to wear the jersey and get the free kit? And I think that kind of had a significant impact on you guys, didn't it?
Yeah, that was massive. You know, and I think we did lockdown better than most, even though some countries it wasn't comparable apples for apples. You know, some of the lockdowns were a lot more serious than other countries, you know, but from the given environment that and the kind of constraints that we had, that was done really, really well. Like really well. Guys had, and we also did a lot of Zoom things where we did team building things on Zoom, and like there was a connection, because once you have a full-time program and you take that away, what's the number one thing you take away? Connection. And connection is the biggest driver of everyday rituals, behaviors. What you're enhancing are your values. What you're enhancing is building a clearer, brighter vision for what you're trying to do in the current phase and whatever the block is. Suddenly you take that away, and our guys are stranded in a way. Well, what do I do? I normally do this, and this every day, or that, and that. And I'm connected with these people. Now I'm phoning or I'm texting it, but I'm not moving anywhere, you know? Yeah. And that I thought was done extremely well, but there was a lot of, it wasn't easy, don't get me wrong, for anyone. But that really brought a different character, because then you could see the team driving itself internally, because now they're on their own. There's no one there telling them what to do, how to do it, when to do it, but they had to get it done, and they did it, and they did it really, really well. So yeah, that was interesting.
And James, just bringing you back in there, because I was looking at some Gallup research there on, you know, it's very easy to measure success in the sports world, because, you know, like with Craig's example, they win an Olympic title, they get a gold medal. They win the World Cup, they get a trophy in their hands. But in the business world, it's much harder day to day to see the impact of this stuff. But what's really interesting is Gallup did this research, and this comes back to your point earlier on, James, about where is here, and taking in Craig's point about connection. That when you can, you know, keep the organization connected, whilst respecting the whole hybrid world of work or whatever the case may be in the future. Gallup have found here, and you look at across the line there, I mean, 50-point increase in employee engagement, 25% growth in workforce over a 2-year period, 85% net profit over a 5-year period, 138% improvement in patronage over a 5-year period. I mean, they're real metrics based on something that probably in the corporate world has always been a bit notional. And it's something that we've been doing a lot of work in Pep Talk around for our own working processes about a future world of work where we figure out how we stay connected and we balance the need for being in the office and being remote. And this is something I know you're quite passionate about. So do you want to talk to me a little bit about that, about maybe a little bit about what Pep Talk are trying to help people kind of have those measurements and improve all those areas that are mentioned there on screen?
Yeah, no, I think every senior leader wants a high performance culture. I think most senior leaders ultimately want that. But I think, and it's no surprise to see then the disconnect sometimes between the employee and the organization when it comes to values, because as Craig touched on, it's easy. It's probably, and organizations are probably guilty of it. It's easy to write it on the wall. It's much, much harder to translate that, in particular now when, to my other point, there is no wall that we all go to. So where's it's very much about what does it feel like for me, and what's that connection level like on a Monday morning at 9 o'clock. And I think organizations have struggled to kind of draw that line between, you know, what does a high performance culture kind of look like? And you can see from those data points, I think most people get, you know, I want a high performance culture. People will be engaged. they're going to stay, they're going to work well. You know, I think most people can join up those dots, but I think, you know, in Pep Talk, certainly what we're trying to put a lens around is some data points around that to begin to understand, you know, what is happening in your teams. You know, is connection a challenge? If it is, let's get after it. If teamwork is a challenge, let's get in after that. If burnout is emerging as a challenge, so what are these things that are pulling at our ability to become a high performing team? Because unless we can get those foundational layers, we're going to struggle. So I think the concept and the stats, I don't think many business leaders will argue with them, and and ultimately, you know, but actually then tangibly pushing it through the organization, through your, you know, your managers, through your teams on a weekly, monthly, and yearly basis, that's much more challenging. But I think if you start, to your point about trying to create a result or something that we can strive towards, that we can kind of begin to look at data, like the organizations don't have huge amounts of data. And I think, I'm sure Craig even, I mean, you know, sports technology and the ability to understand and get the best of people, like that's now been part of high performing teams for the last 10 or 15 years. And every part of that now is about ultimately helping the team and the individual perform to their potential. I think for organizations, we're only beginning now to understand how people are feeling. How do we then improve the environment with which they work in to help them be better? And I think that's that next wave now, where, you know, human analytics and people analytics, and not to be Big Brother, but to just in particular look at the team, look at the environment, and then how do we make that better through behaviors and habits and actions, looking at the root cause of some of these issues. So yeah, we're really excited about, you know, the role that technology can play in enabling change here. We still need people to deliver and execute and buy in and take it off the wall and into the Zoom call or into the meeting. But I think creating that North Star for an organization to look at and using data to underpin that, that's the really exciting piece for us. But I think sports teams are a lot further along in understanding the importance of that, if you get me.
Yeah. Can I just say one thing there, just because I agree with you completely? I think with high performance sport, like every team in whatever sport you have, you'll have a structure and a system of what you want to do and how to do it. But it takes people within that structure to perform it. So best you know what kind of personalities you've got and what kind of traits you have under pressure, complete pressure where it's all on the line, versus there's no pressure. We've just started a series of games and there's nothing riding on it. So there's such an extreme between what you think you know and then what happens under real pressure, and the balance between knowing what's repeatable over and over. I'm going to get this from this person because they're comfortable here, or I'm aware of what's going to happen here because of previous or what we're working on. Once you know that, that's a totally different picture.
And I think what we've seen on the organizational side is companies that have taken their culture from a piece of paper and brought it in over the last 2 or 3 years, they're the ones now that are thriving. The Great Resignation and all of that dynamic, companies that haven't really managed to figure out how they bring their culture and behaviors to life and focus on it, I think they're the organizations that are ultimately now struggling to deal with this new paradigm, because they've no foundational layers of connection and trust, and it's all beginning to kind of break at the seams when it's under pressure. And certainly every organization has been placed under a level of stress and pressure and complexity over the last 2 years. So I think that's on the money, and I definitely think that's part of the Great Resignation, is around that particular organizations that have paid no real importance to that and relied on the statement on the wall. They're struggling now to keep people, but also retain them also attract them, because what does this company feel like? What's the proposition here? What does it feel like? And you can't walk the halls anymore. So I think that's the real challenge for organizations, is creating, showcasing the environment. What does it feel like? What does a manager do on a Monday morning to make me feel part of something and connect me? So you're on the money, Craig. It's a great point.
I think when there like we have this the thing we call the cultural transformation framework. And, when one of the things we're talking about there, like, and Craig, you've spoken about it so well, is like you define your culture, you set the kind of standards for the team, then the team align to that culture, and then there's a buzz created. And obviously, from a sports perspective, there's a buzz about going to a World Cup, going to an Olympics, winning them. They're easy things to get a buzz about. But then the challenge is maintaining momentum. And when you are the most successful hockey team in history, how do you come out of an Olympics and go, right, now we got to go again? Because a lot of the senior guys are kind of going, well, what's left to do? So you've got to keep them engaged and go again. And it's something I think that is really important for the corporate world to understand about the sports world, is that success, the trappings of success. So for Belgium, the trappings of success are the Olympic title, the world title, and all the stuff that goes with it, and the celebrity the players get, and the sponsorship and all that kind of stuff. But the success is of the coaching structure is what you guys do every day. It's what you bring every day. Albert Einstein once said, try not to become a man of success, but rather try to become a man of value. And what it is like, what are you bringing every day to the environment that makes us better? And every day you get a little bit better. And every game you get a little bit better. And even in the Olympic final, you're not thinking about winning the Olympic final when the game starts. You're thinking about, where do I need to pass the ball? Where do I need to run to? Where do I need to be in the defensive lineup? It's doing your job minute by minute through the game, which leads to the extrinsic reward of the win. And I think for the corporate world, when they talk about success, when you look at the stats there a minute ago, it's understanding, well, what am I doing every day that brings value to this environment? And that's as applicable to the leader as it is to the person working on the factory floor. And I guess, I'm very conscious of the time, but maybe that's a nice place to kind of give you an opportunity to have the final word on, where we're at in relation to how you maintain success once you find that it's working.
I think that's the $1 million question right there, because it's one thing to break through and win an Olympic medal. It's another thing to break through and win a gold medal in the layman's terms, because everyone, like the first time that I went to the Olympics, I wanted to compete. I really wanted to be an Olympian. And then I got really upset because we only finished 10th in our first two, like 10th and 10th. And it was like, man, we had a good team. We didn't do what we wanted to do. Didn't happen. Took the Irish team through. This was a tough challenge because no team sport from Ireland had made the Olympics in 100 years. So what reference point do you have to get there and then perform? And we did really, really well. We missed out on 3 games by 1 goal, and we lost to the bronze medalist by 1 goal, 3-2, and we lost to the Olympic gold medalist by 1 goal, 3-2 as well. So those are the margins that are so fine to actually win. But when you win, how do you become a serial winner? How do you become a back-to-back winner, where that's the hardest thing in sport? And then once you've done that, what do you do next? So there's always going to be a competition next year. There's always another Olympic Games. There's always another World Cup. It depends on, have you got the right innovation? Have you got the right culture? Have you got the right vision? And do you have the right talent that's working hard enough every day, not necessarily to win again, but to put yourself in a position to win again? That's more important. Do you have the right time frame, timeline, plan, leadership, all the things that go with it, like performance mindset? Do you know yourself? Do you know others? Do you know the team? Do you know where we are? What's more important now? What are we working towards? How do we get there? And once you get more experience in the group about how to do that, how they know where they are, because we had to play the Europeans before the Olympics. This is a strange situation. So you have the European tournament. It's literally 6 weeks before the Olympics. But our training plan worked through the Europeans, where we were still training while playing the tournament. So we finished 3rd in that tournament, and it was like, okay, Belgium didn't really nail this one on the head. But ultimately, that tournament wasn't our goal. The goal, the trappings were to do well then, and then take your foot off the gas. And then when you go into the big one, you weren't ready. And the 2 teams that finished ahead of us, we beat them in the first 2 games of the Olympics in the pool games. So you really have to know what you're doing from a planning point of view and hold on to that whatever else is said around you is not important. What you decide within the four walls of that program, you go after 100% every day. Some days are better than others. Some days are not as good. And other days you have behind days and you have ahead days, so you know where you are. And when you get onto that, you can't control the outcome, but you can seriously influence your effort. You can control all the things around that to put you in a position to be at the best you can be. And that's all you can really kind of go for, and that's the thing that'll give you confidence, because you've done everything. You've planned it, had prior experience, it did work, we go again, maybe we have to change a little bit, maybe there's another bout of COVID or something, and then we have experience from that, we need to do this better, we need to do it sooner, and then you go back again, and you're looking for repeatables. If you get the repeatables right in certain blocks, and that vision is burning bright, that it pulls you there through thick and thin, man, then the magic starts to happen. Then you start to feel it, and then it's game on, and then you know that you've got the right group. And if they're fully prepared, mentally, physically, tactically, and technically, then it's game on. Then we're ready.
Great words, man. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Sure.
Just wish you well. I know that the club you're head coach of racing are in the playoffs, in the semi-finals. So I wish you luck for that. You have a lot on your plate at the moment. I really appreciate you taking the time to chat with us. James, again, thanks as always.
Yeah, thanks, Craig. Really, thanks, Niall. Cheers. Take care.
Ciao.